Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Country Music Armadillo Show. This is our first show of Season 2. We got a great season coming up for you, a lot of exciting guests. We're going to start that right here, right now. We are on location, coming to you live from Billie Gant's kitchen table. Not many people have been able to share this honor, and I'm proud to be one of them. Billie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, and good to have you here.
Usually we kind of end with a what's next for Billie Gant. But right now, let's start with what's next for Billie Gant, because you've got some fairly exciting news. You've got a new record coming out real soon, right?
Yeah, I'm cutting a new record, mostly new songs, recently written, and a couple old ones, older ones, a year or two old, that I thought would be good to put on there. So Nick and I are working on that in the studio, Nick Giese. We've also written one together called Amarillo Girl, which is a pretty good tune. And we'll probably write some more in the future. So we've got to put that together. That should be about 5 weeks or so from now. We've got most of the tunes done. And once we put on 3 or 4 more tunes, it won't be hard to master it and get it pressed up, do some artwork, etc., and have it available. Some of my very best stuff is on there. Like I said, it's all new, and I'm looking forward to putting that together. Another bit of news, I have a friend in Nashville that's a songwriter, been there for a long, long time. He started out very young man there and went to Nashville to become a songwriter. He was there about 2 years, and another young fella came to town named Chris Christopherson, and they hit it off. They've been friends forever. I met Chris Gantry at a guitar pool in Louisville, Kentucky, along with James Austin and Tom Gent were there. And from there we went to Altamont, Tennessee, and I met up with some more. We'll talk about that here hopefully in a minute. Chris and I became great friends. Probably the most successful song he's written was Dream's Everyday Housewife, which Glenn Campbell took to #1. Mm-hmm. But his stuff's been recorded by Robert Goulet and Reba McEntire and a whole lot of big name stars in Nashville. A great writer, a great intellect, and one really cool cat. Well, he introduced me to a fellow that owns a studio in Nashville, and he also has a publishing company. And my intentions were and are to get the most commercial songs that I have into the hands of some of the great artists out there today recording country music, real country music, and hopefully the world can hear a few of my songs. So I'll be headed back to Nashville the second week in September, and staying at the facilities there in Nashville and recording some demos and just looking toward the future as a songwriter. That's where most of my time goes, into songwriting these days. Those are two things that are happening that I'm really excited about. Then I go on next month. I'll be in Indiana, in Portland, Indiana, with Wade Jennings and the Unwanted. That's always an adventure.
As David Fletcher would say, you better wear a helmet.
Yeah. And, I usually open up the show for Wade, and then Wade and his band comes on and start doing their thing, and then I join them for a while. Wade's recorded a couple of my songs, and we do those, and we rock out a bit. And we just have a great time. The audience loves it. We love it. We love each other.
Yeah, there's a definite chemistry between you guys. I've seen you guys together several times now, and it's unmistakable, because you guys you're just looking at each other and you know what the other one's thinking.
Yeah.
And it's so organic.
Yeah.
And it's such a strong friendship that it makes it that much better when you guys are up there doing your thing, because you guys are just having the time of your lives.
Oh yeah, we're just we just have a ball with it. We like each other an awful lot. It shows, and it's almost like living in the moment up there. You're just rolling with the punches. You might start laughing. You never know. It's all good. I met Way Jennings in Altamont, Tennessee. We were doing a benefit for a fellow musician that had a horrible thing happen to him. He went for some dental work, and what they gave him to put him out actually set him on fire and burned him from within, burned off his hands and his feet and his face. So it was an underground outlaw thing, and I also met Josh Morningstar there. That's where I met Billy Don Burns, J.B. Beverly, Steve Young, who wrote Lonesome Honor and Me. We were all there were 7 of us in a line up there, the songwriters. And each one would do a song. And it was my second guitar pull and probably the greatest one I'll ever be in. So I met Way, and we struck it off right away. He had just turned 30 or 31 years old. He didn't have a whole lot of experience, but I could see the talent, the drive, the determination he had. Well, about 2 months later, I get a call, and it's Way Jennings. He says, "Hey, Hoss, you want to go on the road with me?" And I said, "Well, just me and you?" He says, "Yeah." Now, Way, at that point in time, didn't have a whole lot of experience. I had pretty much. And I thought, sure, man, let's go do it. So we took off. We hit 18 states, just he and I. I survived that. And went back to writing, and Way eventually formed a band and took off, and I don't think he's been home a night since. He's always on the road and traveling, and he recorded a couple of my tunes. He'll probably record a couple more when he's ready to record. I always keep him in mind when I'm writing. He has such a beautiful baritone voice down there.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's one of the fellows I keep in mind when I write. Keep an eye on Way Jennings, folks. He's got what it takes.
Yes, he does.
To make very good country records, country music, and if he comes around your way, check him out.
Now, they're keeping him on the road pretty steadily now, so if there's 4 walls and a roof, Way Jennings is probably going to be there. He's getting to be kind of like Dallas Moore, Getting an interview with Dallas Moore next week, I just damn near had to nail him to the floor to get him to stand still long enough for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that man, all over the world. So, now that we know what's coming up with Billie Gant, let's talk about where were you born? Tell us who Billie Gant is.
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. I cannot remember a time when I wasn't singing. I mean, my first conscious memories of singing and music. And there used to be a TV show here in Cincinnati when I was a child called, it was a Harris Rosedale. Harris Rosedale was an old vaudevillian dancer. I imagine he was a singer too, but dancing was his thing. He was taught by Gene Kelly, the famous movie star dancer, singing in the rain. And I told my mom I'd like to be on that show. And I auditioned, and that's where I got my start. It wasn't long. I was working local shows here around Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. The one I remember most was working with a fellow named Lloyd Price, who had a hit on the song Stagger Lee and Primrose Lane and Personality, sort of a rhythm and blues kind of fellow. I sort of outgrew that, and we kept on singing, in the school days, always singing in variety shows or anywhere I could. I just loved to sing and didn't have any problem standing up in front of an audience of giggling schoolmates. And, just took it from there. I mean, my whole life has been about singing and performing and all the aspects of entertainment and everything you can possibly learn about the different things that you go through, on stage.
So, who would have been some of the idols? Who did you look up to as a young man?
Well, as a boy, rock and roll hit when I was about 8 years old. Before that, I really didn't have any favorites. I was just singing everything. I really thought that at that time I was probably going to grow up and go to New York and try and get into these big Broadway shows, which I loved at the time. So shows like There's No Business Like Show Business was one of the greatest movies I ever saw, and it really influenced me when I saw that downtown. We took a bus down to see it, and it's still a vivid memory of all the great stars in there, and just a great movie. A movie about show business. All I ever wanted to be was in show business. And I didn't care if it was a guy who spun plates at the end of a stick. I was going to learn how to do something. So it's always been singing. I left home. I was about 18, went up to Cape Cod, fooled around up there with some guys, and lived in a commune, real hippies, which was sort of bizarre because at that time Cincinnati was rather tame. When I got to the East Coast, it was a lot different. So we, now we're talking toward the 67, 68, 1967, 68. The rock and roll was fun, but I had picked up some bluegrass and some country as a child on I think it was WKRC in Cincinnati. And I fell in love with country music, and eventually in my early 20s I got back to country and started to really dedicate myself to country music. But I could always sing rock and roll, blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, you name it, I would try to sing it. But it was the country ballads that hooked me, the great country ballads. I first heard George Jones, probably the first real country singer I ever heard. But it was the discovery of Merle Haggard that led me into songwriting. That pretty much sums it up right there.
So later on in life, you were involved in a pretty serious car injury, and that was kind of a turning point for you. And from there, you really started focusing more on the writing of songs, right?
Correct. February of 1995, I was involved in a car accident that laid me up for a long time. I had a lot of time to think. When I finally got back on my feet again, I had disbanded my group, Billie Gant and the Vigilantes. We started in the early 70s playing what's now called outlaw country music. I'd gotten into a lot of trouble in my younger days. My energy wasn't focused in the right place, let's let me say. It sort of had a misspent youth. My whole approach to the stage and music was very much different from the other folks and young fellows playing music around here at that time. I didn't really have any options. It was turned out to be outlaw country, and I fit there. I enjoyed it, but after the car wreck, I knew that those days were over as a front man. So that's when I picked up a guitar. And I can remember sitting at the kitchen table looking at the bills and the situation I was in and saying, there's only one way out of this. I had written a few songs, handful of songs in the past, but they really weren't much. So I said, well, I've got one way out of here, and I'm going to write my way out. And for the next 4.5 years, as I recuperated, I wrote 16, 18 hours a day. And wrote my way out of it.
Was there ever any point during your recovery that you doubted whether that was something you wanted to do, or Did you know right away, okay, I can't be the front man anymore, now I'm going to write? Was it immediate or?
It was immediate. It was immediate. That same old drive that was there as a child was still there. You know, the accident was a really a bad accident. I doubted that I was going to live through it. And when I knew I had lived through it, then the world opened up to me, and I knew what I had to do in order to continue participating in the business that I love so much.
So there you go. Billie Gant gets in a bad car accident, picked himself up, dusted himself right off, and got right back to it.
What's a poor boy to do?
Rolling on. So, okay, we're going to take a short break now, and I'm going to play one of Billie's songs. This is a song, House of Cards. Way Jennings has done it. It's one of the top 10 best songs I've ever heard. Billie and I were talking about it before we started the interview. It's just so relatable. All of us have been through this at one point or another. It's just one of those songs that it resonates deep within you, and that's what makes it a good country song. As Willie Nelson said, 3 chords and the truth, right?
Right. Also, Kara Clark.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Has recorded this song.
I did not know that.
I also met Kara at Altamont, and check her out.
So this is Billie Gant with House of Cards, and we'll be right back.
I see you again. I got something to say I couldn't say before. Now that the war is over, I no longer want to hurt you anymore. I can see where I was wrong, and somehow I got lost again. And it don't matter what I do, I always seem to find a way to never win. And I could have built myself a mansion with all the bridges that I burned. Your heart of gold was worth a fortune, a fortune I did not deserve. With you beside me it was easy, but I chose to disregard and traded your love for a bottle and built myself a house of cards. When I was young, I knew a man who warned me about my unruly ways. He said, don't carry that rebellious streak too far ahead, for numbered are your days. The road of life is tough enough, and someday others will depend on you. But I can't tell you how to live your life. Go on and do what you must do. And I could have built myself a mansion with all the bridges that I burned. Your heart of gold was worth a fortune, a fortune I did not deserve. With you beside me it was easy, but I chose to disregard and traded your love for a bottle, built myself a house of cards. With you beside me, it was easy, but I chose to disregard and traded your love for a bottle and built myself a house of cards.
Welcome back to the Country Music Armadillo Show. Back here with Billie Gant. You just heard House of Cards. Now, Billie's one of these guys that all of these guys in our scene today really look up to, and they really appreciate Billie. And you've made a lot of great friends who are out there busting their asses to keep true, honest-to-God country music alive. And let's talk about your relationship with some of those guys. The first guy I want to talk about, you mentioned him earlier. You're recording your new album with him. He worked with Wade Jennings on his album Acoustic, one of the best guitar players in the world right now, in my honest opinion, Nick Giese. Where did you meet Nick, and how did you get involved with him?
I went to a jam session one night to see my friend Sonny Moorman, who's a world-class blues rock guitar player from Hamilton, Ohio. Plays a trio, Sonny Moorman Group. I think it was a Tuesday night jam session at some barbecue joint in Cincinnati. And he had a young bass player on the stage, a little scruffy fella. And I played with some great bass players, and I heard this kid playing bass, just smoking this bass. And I go, I want to talk to this guy. So we break time, we met outside and started talking. And, you know, he just had the touch that you look for in a bass player. You know, bass players touch the bass. They don't all have the same touch. Well, Nick had that touch, and I wanted to talk to him because I knew that there was a real musician inside of there. So we talked and talked and talked. And I said, well, maybe we can get together sometime and do a little picking. He said, well, yeah. He says, but I really want to be a guitar player. And I went, huh? I thought, wow. So our friendship grew to what it is now. And it's more like a father and son relationship. And we hang out all the time. Hell, we love each other. And he does play guitar. He also plays mandolin, banjo. If it's got strings, Nick can play it. And he really is one of the really, really good guys.
Absolutely.
That I've met in my life. He's one of those few people you can trust. It's a pleasure working with Nick.
Now, there's another young man. We're getting ready to go watch you play with him here tonight in Cincinnati. And he's got a song out called You Don't Follow Billie Gant. Of course, I'm talking about Josh Morningstar. He was a guest on the show last season. How did you get involved with Josh?
Once again, I met Josh in October of 13 in Altamont, Tennessee. He was doing a solo. He really stood out. I wrote a little article for Facebook when I got home from Tennessee, and I spotlighted a couple people. One was Wade Jennings, and the other was Josh, because I saw the potential. You know, I'm in the talent business. I look for talent, and I gravitate toward talent, and I have all my life. I look for talent first. You know, the other things, the individual personality, they come out later. I'm not too concerned with. I'm concerned with talent and the nurturing of talent and watching it grow. And I could see those things that I look for. They were all over Josh. Talent, determination, dedication.
Now, he's another guy like Dallas. His road schedule is intense.
Yes, and he wasn't working a whole lot at that time. In the last 3 years, he's thrown it into overdrive, got some more seasoning. Everything's opening up for Josh, and I'm happy for him, and I look forward to seeing him tonight. He's another one of those guys that you have a good time with on stage, because you never know what's going to happen. But it always turns out on the positive side. I think Josh is about 34 years old now, 35, and he's got his head on straight, and his writing is just blossomed and matured. I look forward to being able to open up the show for him tonight and at the Gano Tavern, and then sit back and watch him go.
Now, I understand the same night you met Josh, you met another songwriter who I admire greatly, and I hope to someday get on this program right here, Mr. J.B. Beverly.
Yes. Well, he's a hard cat to clean after. JB is out of North Carolina, songwriter, singer, a real good cat. Another guy you can trust. He's the guy you want to hang out with sometimes, like at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just a great guy, great songwriter. I love his voice. Mm-hmm. He's got that high, lonesome sound. He's seasoned. He just toured the U.S. He's probably still touring. Look up J.B. Beverly, Beverely, and check him out, because he produces some great music, and he's an all right guy, folks.
Absolutely.
Believe me.
His Strip to the Root album, that's hard to beat. That's probably one of my top 10 albums of all time. It was just that damn good. All right, let's talk about a guy that you've known since very early on in his life and career, and a guy who really, when you talk about, this whole outlaw scene, has been around maybe the longest of all the active guys right now, and that's Dallas Moore.
Oh, yeah. Dallas is from Cincinnati also. In fact, we both have the same hometown. In 1987, I guess it was, the summer of 87, I was playing a little club there 4 nights a week, I think it was, a place called Doty's. There was a young fellow who used to come in with long blonde hair and a guitar case, and had a couple young pals with him, and 17-year-old Dallas Moore. I always opened my stage up for young talent. He was very raw at the time. He only did a handful of songs. I thought, well, he's going to be a southern rocker when he grows up. That's what I thought about Dallas. But I didn't know his love for country music at that time. So he'd come in about once a week. He'd get up, do his thing. And the one thing I noticed as I was watching is that the crowd, usually you get somebody up there with less experience, the crowd will turn away. Well, they didn't turn away. They kept their eyes on him. He held their attention. And that's a plus. That's stage presence. He'd knock it out and go home and get up the next morning and go to school. Then after the accident, I'd written part of a song called Outlaw Country. And I met Dallas over, now we're talking probably 2009. I hadn't seen Dallas in 20 years. And he was opening up for David Allen Cover there. And I had it scribbled down what I had on the tune. I had it scribbled down. And, he was hawking tables and everything for the show. And I just sort of stood back and waited for him to go to the John. Well, I caught up to him at the urinal. He didn't know who it was, but I walked up and I stuck that note in his back pocket as he was at the urinal. And I said, hello, Dallas. We finished up our business there, and we started talking about the song. I said, see if you can finish this up. So he finished up the song Outlaw Country and put it on the Can't Tame a Wildcat album, I believe it was. The song took off and basically launched his career, and I couldn't be happier for him. He used that as a springboard to showcase his talent that really may have no bottom to it. He's still reaching into his talent and bringing out great stuff all these years later, and it's great to see him succeed. He's had his band together for a long time. They're all a good bunch of guys. They got their head on straight, and they just work, because that's what it takes. So I'm sure most of you know Dallas Moore or have heard of him. Make sure you go see him and the Dallas Moore Band. Check out his albums and his music, because he certainly is the real deal. And I'm glad to be a part of that early beginning for Dallas, and I'm glad that we've remained friends all these years.
Like I said about Wade Jennings earlier, if there's four walls and a ceiling, he's going to play there. And when it comes to Dallas, if there's room enough for everybody to stand there, Dallas is going to play there.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas is coming through your town at some point. Keep an eye out for him. Go see him. Go say hi. Tell him Billie Gant and the Armadillo sent you. One of the most friendly guys in the world. Can't beat Dallas more. And he'll be our guest next week on the show. Looking forward to that. So one more guy we're going to talk about. And back in April, I got to see you and this man at a house party for some good friends of mine. And I got a picture of you guys that is one of the coolest pictures I've ever taken. I had ran to the store to get some money out of the ATM, and I came back, and I walked out back, and you were sitting out on the wood pile with Billy Don Burns, playing Billy Don Burns, one of your songs, on the guitar, and I'm standing on the patio, and I told my wife, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen right there. Billie Gant playing Billy Don Burns' song. I want to go out there and eavesdrop, but I don't want to be rude. And I stood there afraid to go out there and talk to you guys until I knew you guys had finished up your business. And then I ran back there before you guys had a chance to get up. And I said, hey, guys, stay there for just a second. I've got to get a picture of this. Tell us about Billy Don Burns.
Well, that night, we were at David and Tina Fletcher's house party in Mooresville, Indiana. This was before the show, and Billy Don Burns, one of the greatest songwriters alive today.
Absolutely.
And I have so much respect for him and his talent and his drive and his accomplishments. Just an amazing man. And I said, Billy Don, I got a new song. I just finished it up. I said, come over here with me and let me play it for you. And the song was Just to Say I Did It All. I said, well, let's go back here in the back. Well, there's looked like a good spot over by a big wood pile. We just sat down, and I played him the tune. That's the moment you're talking about. But I met Billy Don in Altamont, Tennessee, 2013, in that guitar pool. I also met a fellow named Wayne Mills there.
Oh, great talent.
Great talent taken away from us a month later. He was shot and killed in Nashville, Tennessee. A great loss. But it's always a pleasure to see Billy Don, listen to his stuff. I wrote one for him called The Hardin County Jail. I'll be doing tonight, and that'll be on the new album, too.
That's great. Billy's a guy that, seeing him right after he got out of the penitentiary and seeing him, I saw him towards the end of June. He's back to being Billy Don Burns.
Yeah.
He has found his confidence, and he was out on the road with Shooter. He's doing stuff on his own right now. Billy Don Burns is another guy that you get a chance to go see him.
Oh, yeah.
Take it. Do not pass it up, and stick around after the show because he's one of the nicest guys in the world. He'll shake your hand. He'll talk to you.
Very laid back.
Absolutely. So
I was with Billy Don, and I had done a show in Kentucky that night. We shook hands, and he went one way and I went the other. And, he was on his way, I believe, to Tim Ledford's and Gene Ledford's house in Oxford, Mississippi when he was pulled over. And he disappeared for a while.
He's turned that into a positive thing,
yeah.
and that's...
You can't keep a guy like Billy Don Burns down no matter what you do to him or what happens. It's, as long as he's breathing, he's coming back at you.
Such an inspirational success story. So you guys were together on a show here back in July down in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. You were the master of ceremonies for the 2016 Whalen Fest. How did that come about?
Well, that came about through... I was in Perryton, Texas, at a big show down there, and I met Jimmy Miles from Alabama, and I met Waylon's brother, Bo Jennings, and young Zach Jennings, a young drummer. I met him through Way, and when they finally decided to come across the Mississippi River and do the Whalen Fest on this side of the Mississippi, they asked me to to MC the show, and what I did there was I'd open up for each act. And I'd do my original songs, do 10, 15 minutes, and then introduce the act, and they'd do 45, and then I'd come back, and this went on all day, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight. And the neat thing about that, from my point of view, is I got to perform for everyone that was there all day and all night. And I met some wonderful, talented people there. And I'll tell you, you know, that you get all that talent together that was there at Wayland Fest 2016, and the energy backstage is just overwhelming. It's just great. I love to do it every day and night.
Sure. This, I don't want to call it underground country music, because it's not really underground, but more the independent scene where guys are handling their own business. They're not towing the Nashville line. They're not following that Nashville standard. This scene right now is blowing up, and that I wish I had been able to get away from work and home for the weekend to get down there for that. I couldn't. Hopefully I will get a chance next year. I assume they're doing another one next year, right? Are they planning on a return to Tennessee?
I talked to Bo Jennings about that, and yes, it will be returning. What they want to do next year is have Loretta Lynn headline the show.
That would be nice.
And
that took place at her ranch down there.
Yeah, that's a great place for camping and so forth. In the summer, you want to check that out, Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, Loretta Lynn's farm. If they have it again, they told me I'd be coming back, and that's good news for me. So that'll be pretty cool. That's a great time down there.
We'll definitely keep you posted on that. We'll give you the news as we get it. So we're here with Billie Gant, and if you listen to these shows regularly, you know I love to talk about writing songs, and we might be with one of the best here. So, Billie, when you decide you want to write a song, what's the process? How do you go about that?
Well, the song sort of tells me what it wants to do. You know, you're writing, you know, and you know, sometimes you're not coming up with anything, and all of a sudden something happens, and you get that first line and second line, and it's like putting a puzzle together in the dark. But Chris Gantry and I talk about this, the process. Something happens. I don't know what it is in this process, and it can last for 30 minutes or it can last for 30 days. Wrestling with a song, because the song wants to go its own way, and you have to nudge it, but you don't know where it's going. I mean, I never know what the title of the song is going to be or anything, and I'll nudge it in one direction and try and let it go that way, and if I hit a dead end, I'll go back to where I was and nudge it in a different direction until all of a sudden it's there, and then you just sort of fine-tune it. Then you have to learn how to play it. Then you have to memorize the words and learn how to sing it. Then you got to learn how to play it and sing it and deliver the song at the same time. So
tie it all together.
Yeah, it's not a 20-minute thing for me. The most important thing to me about a song is that it stands and speaks for itself. I don't have to introduce a song and tell the audience what it's all about. If I had to do that, then why write the song? So I just play the song and let it speak for itself, and then I go wherever the song takes me.
So if you start writing a song and you get stuck on it, do you throw it out, or do you save it and maybe come back to it a few weeks, or maybe even as late as a few years down the road?
Today, once I get a hold of something, I don't let it go. If it's not going somewhere, it's because I'm pushing it in the wrong direction. And I have to back up and try and find out where the song wants to go. If I feel the song, if I know in my heart that this is a real song and telling a real story, especially the sad country ballads, I won't leave it alone, or it won't leave me alone. I don't care how long it takes. I went on a songwriting session earlier this year and I've done this over and over again. I just locked myself up for 34, 35 days, wrote 14 songs, and out of that 14, I have about 5 new ones. I lost 22 pounds. You get focused. You get involved. It's personal. This song has to be written, and you just sort of forget about everything, and you concentrate on the song. There's so many directions a song can go, especially when you don't know how it's going to end. So, and I want it to really say what it has to say. I want it to be real. I want people to feel it. I want people to know this is real life. I heard Merle Haggard say one time, a young interviewer was interviewing him, and toward the end of the interview, she said, "What kind of songs do you like to write best, Mr. Haggard?" He said, "Sad songs." And she looked at him funny. She was probably in her early 20s. She said, "Sad songs?" And he just gave her the biggest grin and said, "Yeah, the sadder the better." When I heard that, it changed how I write. I realized that I could go into the depths of sadness when I write a sad song, a sad country ballad. That's where I go for. There is no limit to heartache, sadness.
And you've even written a song called "The Sadder the Song, the Better I Feel."
Yeah.
Which is a fairly new song. Is that going to be on the new album?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's one of my favorite songs of yours. I've heard you play it live a few times, and excellent song. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah, I from meeting some of these songwriters I have in the last 3 years, it changed things for me because I had to really get better at it. Every word, every line, everything has to connect. So I spent a lot of time working on those sad country ballads, because to me that's the backbone of country music.
Absolutely.
And I don't hear a lot of good traditional tearjerkers, and I just love them because they're so real. Everybody sings the blues sometime. You don't have to live there, but everybody visits. There is no way to avoid it. It's all a part of life, and you can't hide from yourself. Intellectual honesty. If you're in a hole or you've got a broken heart or something like that's going on, guys like me are the ones that take what you can't say and struggle to put it in words so you can understand it when you hear it and it touches you, and you know that you're not alone because someone else has been there too, and that's me. And that's what I try to do.
I love it. So, as someone who's written songs now for years and years and years, do you have any guess how many songs you have got written?
No.
I didn't expect an answer on that, but I thought I'd throw it out there anyways. All right, I'm going to ask a question now that I've asked one guy before and it stumped him on the spot. As a songwriter, if you could have any artist from any time sing any one of your songs, who would you want and why?
Wow. Huh. Well, I guess the biggest compliment to a songwriter would have Elvis Presley do one in his time. I think just about every songwriter would be satisfied with that.
Sure.
Of course, Haggard or Jones or anybody like that knows what a great song is. Because Johnny Cash, you look at the songs, you look at their albums over the years, they know what a good song is. Every song you hear them sing is a great song. So if one of those fellas were to choose one of my songs in their lifetime, that would have been the biggest compliment, I guess.
I'll take that answer. Well, we're going to wrap this up. Billy's got to get ready to go be badass on stage with Josh Morningstar. Billy, thanks for taking the time. It's been fun. Got your new album coming out soon. Anything else you'd like to tell the people?
Well, I'd like to thank you
No problem. Hey,
for coming all the way.
Pleasure's mine.
From another state to visit me here today, and you're going to the show with me?
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
We're going to be there all night long.
And take our buddy Lance with us.
Yeah.
Here. No, just thank you, Venice, for coming out. I know you got a new baby girl. That's one of the neat things of life. And congratulations.
Thank you.
And tell your wife, Melissa, I said hello.
Will do.
And congratulations on that baby, darling. I wish you both a beautiful life.
Well, thanks, Billy. Next week, we'll have Dallas Moore on the show. Thanks for listening. This has been the Country Music Armadillo Show.